Sean Pickett here with Sales Integrity. Thank you for stopping by the Sales Integrity Podcast. Today we continue our discussion on the topic of prospecting on purpose. So without further ado, let's get today's episode rocking and rolling. Welcome back to the Sales Integrity Podcast. I'm Sean Pickett, founder and CEO of Sales Integrity, and your host on the Sales Integrity Podcast. We continue on with our Prospecting on Purpose series, and we're specifically talking prospecting by the numbers. Previously, I read one stat, one bit of research I found out there. I let you know who the source is, and then what we do is discuss how you can make use of that stat or that research to take advantage of it in the real world of selling for yourself. So today, the topic is social selling. And let me read you the bit of research I got on social selling. So the source is Aberdeen. And what they found is that 73% of salespeople using social selling as part of their sales process outperform their sales peers and exceeded quota 23% more often. The source is Aberdeen. Let me read that again. 73% of salespeople using social selling as part of the sales process outperformed their sales peers and exceeded quota 23% more often. And again, the source is Aberdeen. So what can we learn from this bit of research? I'm sure by now you've heard a ton of chatter out there on social media and different articles and the research that you've done. You've just heard a ton of chatter about social selling. And there's a lot of self-proclaimed gurus out there that are just talking about social selling only. That's all you need to do. The world has changed. Cold calling's dead. Well, we talked about that in our last, two podcast episodes ago. We talked about that research from Discover.org, where they found that 78% of decision makers polled have taken an appointment or attended an event that came from an email or cold call. And again, the source on that was Discover.org. So we talked about that a couple episodes ago. And that shows you right there that cold calling is not dead. So it's alive and well. It just may not be as cold as it used to be. You're going to weave in research, and you're going to warm up the calls by being more informed. You can't just call in cold, so to speak. But we'll just keep calling it cold calling because that's what it is. You're interrupting someone who is working on something else they deem more important than talking to someone who just interrupted them, right? So given that, cold calling is still alive and well. 78% of decision makers have taken an appointment or attended an event that came from an email or cold call. So emailing is a strategy that works. Cold calling is a strategy that works. The last episode, we talked about referral-based selling. And we found that 91% of customers say they give referrals, yet only 11% of salespeople actually ask for referrals. And the source there was Dale Carnegie, very reputable organization that conducts research, and all they're doing is, that sales training. And sales consulting and working with companies in the sales process. And again, they found 91% of customers say they'd give referrals, only 11% of salespeople ask for referrals. So referral selling should be a key component of your overall process as well. And then obviously today we talk about social selling. So social selling is not the only strategy, okay? And so tip number one is this. It's not either or, it's and. Okay, so it's not, the question isn't either or, the key word here is and. And what I mean by that is the question isn't whether you should use social selling or cold calling as your primary prospecting technique. The answer is you should use social selling and cold calling and referral selling and strategic networking. Those are the four cornerstones of prospecting, and those four work hand in hand. So it's not one or the other. It's a well-balanced approach combining all four of these techniques working in concert with one another. That's the best approach you could apply. So tip number one is don't think so narrow-mindedly. Open up your mind to the possibility of using more than one technique, and don't get influenced by a lot of what you see out there and read out there from social media only or social selling only gurus, where they say this is all you need to do and those other techniques are dead. I could go into a whole nother episode on why they're saying that, but I think it's pretty obvious. But from my perspective, I'm working in the weeds myself and my sales integrity certified sales coaches working in the weeds, one-on-one, in the trenches with the sales professionals in the tech industry that we coach, and we see firsthand that all of these techniques are necessary and they're alive and well, and when executed properly in concert with one another in a well-balanced prospecting strategy or approach, then it works really, really well. So I can tell you firsthand from experience, these are alive and well today in 2017. So it's not either or, it's and. So first tip for you is to think, more openly. Think about all four of the four cornerstones of prospecting, and your strategy should include social selling and cold calling and referral selling and strategic networking. Okay, so that's tip number one. Tip number two: set the narrative. So you are going to be the one that sets the narrative. And what does that mean? Here's the deal: your prospects are going to either find you or you're going to find them. Right? So those are the only two options here. You're going to find them or they're going to find you. Now you could say, hey, someone could refer me over to them and that's someone else finding them for me. But realistically, the introduction's either going to be from that other person. So that means you found them through that other person, or the introduction's going to be that other person connecting you directly with the prospect. And those two already knew about it before the connection occurred. So your prospects are either going to find you or you're going to find them. If they find you, then what will they learn about you? They either learn what others say about you, or worse yet, they learn nothing. Meaning if they go online and they do a search for you and they look in social media like LinkedIn, they looked on Facebook or Twitter, or they go search for YouTube videos or just anywhere for you online in a Google search or Bing search, and they don't find anything, that's not good, because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if they can't get to know you, especially beforehand, we talked about a previous stat where, there's lots of studies, but, these buyers are roughly 2/3 of the way through their buying process before they raise their hand and reach out to a sales professional. So you're going to use that to your advantage. If they can't find you, then they're never going to reach out to you. If you found them, make no mistake about it, they're going to go search for you. And if they don't find much on you, they're not going to be very comforted there, right? Because in this world, we're in a social, mobile, video-based world, and if they can't find you quickly because of the speed of those different tools and technology, if they can't find you quickly, they're going to figure that you just must not be a player. You might not be someone who they should take serious, especially when your competitors have a lot more content out there for them to evaluate and start to feel more comfortable with them. So just keep that in mind. They're going to learn what you put out into the social stratosphere in terms of content and your point of view. So you have the opportunity to set the narrative, so when they find you, you are guiding them through your story and your narrative. Also, if you find them, they're still going to turn to social media. Just make no mistake about that, to learn more about you, as I mentioned. So again, you need to set the narrative. You have the chance to create the content and put it out there. And just part of this, tip number two of set the narrative, how would you go about doing that, right? The number one search engine in the world right now is Google. Okay. And the number two search engine is YouTube. You probably thought it was Bing or maybe others, Yahoo or whatever else may be out there. But the reality is Google's number one, Yahoo's number two. That's the number two search engine in the world. There's more searches on YouTube than there are on Bing. And YouTube is owned by Google. So when you type a search into Google, you probably see a lot of videos. If there's video content, that'll come up first because Google prioritizes that. So here's my little tip for you in terms of setting the narrative. Create several short videos. First of all, start your own YouTube channel. It's free. You can go get a free Gmail account. So go get a free Gmail account. With that comes a free YouTube account. Get that set up. Cut some quick videos. How do you go about doing that? Well, on your cell phone, you could just use that video camera is really good there, and then you can upload them to YouTube. That's a very simple way to do it. If you want a free tool, you can go to zoom.us, zoom.us, download the Zoom audio video chat application. You could just start meetings on your own with you being the only person. Share your screen or turn the video on, and then hit record. And you can record for free and then upload those to YouTube. So you can set the narrative, and what you would do is tell the story around your point of view on your niche topic. So when they're out there researching whatever that niche topic is, they'll find you in your videos. And if they don't find you within their research for that topic, if you reach out to them and you find them and they go do some research on you, your YouTube channel is going to come on. They're going to go, wow, this person really is a go-to specialist in their field here. They're doing a lot of vlogs or video blogs through these videos. So just keep that in mind. That's how you can set the narrative. There's a whole bunch of other ways to do that, but we're not going to cover all the techniques on setting the narrative in this particular episode. That's just tip number 2 to get you to think about it. And then finally, we'll end with tip number 3. Just like I talked about in our last episode, I always talk about this. It all comes down to your time management and what you're focusing on. So tip number 3, schedule time for daily social media or social selling time. That means schedule time for the various platforms. It comes back to blocks of time. You only have so much time you can spend. So identify the platforms you will spend time on, then determine in advance how much you will spend on each platform, whether daily or weekly. It should be no longer than weekly, though. Daily may seem aggressive to you, so at least figure it out and do it 3 times weekly. If you're doing it less than that, you're probably not going to be out there as frequent as you need to be. But if you fear, hey, I haven't done this at all before, and now I'm going to start this new habit, do it once a week and do that for a month. And then in month 2, do it twice a week. And then starting in month 3 and beyond, do at least 3 times a week. And that way you can build into the habit and make it a part of your normal sales cadence and weekly routines. But it shouldn't be any longer than weekly, because if you're waiting weeks to put content out there, you're just not going to be as relevant and keeping up with the pulse of the marketplace. And your competitors who are pumping out more content are just going to drown you out. Just your few videos here or there. So your occasional video here or there will just get drowned out. So just keep that in mind in terms of frequency. And then conduct a thinking exercise first before you start doing. So a lot of average sales professionals just start going out and doing. Their strategies to fly by the seat of their pants, and their operational mode is just to wing it on a daily basis. The best of the best, the top sales achievers, as I've talked about time and time again on this podcast and in my coaching sessions with my clients, they do the thinking time first. They create their plan before they start executing. And so you need to conduct a thinking exercise first before you start doing. Otherwise, it's easy to get sucked in and lose, or worse yet, waste a lot of unproductive internet surfing time, right? And so it's easy to say, hey, I'm going to spend, this much time on LinkedIn, or this much time on YouTube, or this much time on Facebook or Twitter. Next thing you know, it's kind of like connecting the dots, choose your own adventure. And, an hour and a half, or 2 hours went by, and you didn't really, accomplish what you set out to accomplish, right? So be very focused on, what am I going to spend my time on? What platform's number 1 am I going to spend my time on? Then what is my purpose for each platform? And then how much time will I spend executing upon that purpose and with the techniques I'm going to do on each platform? Then you're going to want to set a timer and get in and get it done. And you want to set a timer that'll go off. Your iPhone or your phone probably has a timer. Get an old egg timer, something that will ring or beep and get your attention to get you out of being sucked into these social platforms, and make sure that you're actually doing what you're supposed to do. So is it creating content and posting it and publishing it out to different groups? Is it going into different groups and responding to so many posts that are in there, so you get your name out there as someone who's a thought leader? Is it create a video and post it on YouTube? Is it going to Facebook and doing research to see if any of your clients happen to have Facebook profiles that are open, where you can gain some information there and figure out who else you're connected to that's connected to them? So really figure out what your strategy is, the purpose of each platform, how you're going to use it, block off a set amount of time, set the timer, get in and get it done. Okay. And then that way you get in a consistent routine. So most importantly, make sure to add value and not just create and sling content for the sake of it. It needs to add value, or the market will sniff you out and cast you out. You don't want that. You don't want to brand yourself the wrong way as someone who just doesn't get it, right? It's not quantity, it's quality, but you do need to be consistent with pumping out that quality content as it relates to social selling. So let's revisit this as we wrap up the episode. The stat that we had talked about was from Aberdeen. They said 73% of salespeople using social selling as part of their sales process outperformed their sales peers and exceeded quota 23% more often. I provided 3 tips for you. The first one is, it's not either or, it's and, meaning it's not social selling or cold calling. It's social selling and cold calling and referral selling and strategic networking. Those are the 4 cornerstones of prospecting. My second tip was, set the narrative. Your prospects are either going to find you or you're going to find them. Either way, they're going to search for you on Google, which is the number 1 search engine, or YouTube, which is the number 2 search engine, which is tied to Google. And so you have the opportunity to set the narrative, create your own content, get your point of view recorded on video. You could even write articles on LinkedIn as well, and just create the content and put it out there. The places you know that your audience will be found, where they're spending time and where they're going to conduct their research, that's where you need to set the narrative. That was number 2. And then number 3, schedule time for daily social media or social selling time. Understand what platforms you're going to spend time on. What's the purpose of your time spent on each platform? What exact techniques are you going to execute there? Then block off time, dedicate a certain amount of time that you're identifying for each task. You're going to put that on your calendar. You're going to set a timer that's going to go off and notify you it's time to move on to the next activity so you don't get sucked into the vast wasteland that can be the internet and social media. So that does it for today's episode. Hopefully you got some value out of this and it caused you to think a little bit differently about social selling. If you are using social selling as part of your overall strategies, maybe it caused you to think a little bit differently about it and have more of a method to your madness and a plan in place for executing social selling activities in conjunction with the other big 3 of the 4 cornerstones. And then if you're not using social selling at all, based on that stat, that I talked about where you could exceed quota 23% more often than you are today, I'd strongly urge you to reconsider not using that as a method for yourself. Okay? So that'll do it for today's episode. Let's wrap up with a few quick reminders. All right. Reminder number 1, if you haven't signed up for our free 7-day video email course titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling, then you should do so right away. Go ahead and visit mastercomplexselling.com. Again, it's mastercomplexselling.com. Reminder number 2, if you want to ask a question and have me feature that on the podcast to answer your question, then just send an email to asksean@salesintegrity.com. Again, it's Ask Sean, and I spell it S-E-A-N. So Ask Sean at salesintegrity.com. Number 3, if you haven't already done so, please rate the show. If you've been listening a few times and you get a sense of what the show is about and you feel comfortable, I greatly appreciate a 5-star rating and a quick 1 to 2 sentence review. You could do so on iTunes. Just search for the show and then click the ratings and reviews and go ahead and just add it there. And then final reminder, if you haven't already joined one of our 2 B2B Tech Sales Professionals group, you could do so on either Facebook or LinkedIn. Just go ahead and search for B2B Tech Sales Professionals, and it'll pop up, and you can just join right there. So once again, thank you for listening to today's episode. Go out there today and help your customers buy what they want, what they need, and what benefits them. And most importantly, go out there and make it a great day.